how many with chronic diseases from vaccines are starseeds light workers, or are people with diseases from vaccines mostly of undesirable genetic lines making super soldiers? All of the above. Well, and anybody who gets vaccinated has the risk of having some sort of negative vaccine injury. Everybody's susceptible. That doesn't matter really who you are. I would say the more advanced the soul is, the easier it is for them to heal, because they're connecting to their higher mind. They're able to connect with truth, even though the vaccines have ways to disconnect a person. That's part of the tactic is to put these frequencies in our bodies, these heavy metals and these toxins in our bodies, not just to create antibodies, but to affect our endocrine system, affect our ability to connect with our higher mind and our intuition. So a person who's very, very strong and determined is going to be able to maybe bounce back a little easier, but there's always going to be some sort of downgrade in a way for anybody who gets vaccinated. I mean, in our era, I mean, I think everybody my age got vaccinated. It was just, you know, there's no talk of vaccine damage, but the vaccines got more and more weaponized as time went on. Or the people with diseases from vaccines, mostly of undesirable genetic lines. Well, I think without vaccines, you know, one needs to look at things like diseases. And I wouldn't say undesirable genetic lines. There've been a lot of targeted genetic lines that are highly advanced, right? So then over the course of time, there's genetic damage, though, based on that level of targeting and the genocides and the Holocaust we've seen, and the trauma. I mean, even the Essenes got wiped out. I mean, and the most advanced groups were totally like abused and compromised, you know, but they're strong. They're able to recover and still hold their mission and come back again. But, you know, undesirable genetic lines, I would say from our point of view, would be like Illuminati members, right? But they're, you know, trying to tinker with our genetics, determining what's desirable and what's not desirable based on their own selfish desires. So that's kind of a hard one to answer, but making super soldiers. Yeah, I don't, I mean, they target certain individuals, mostly that I have known, that are somehow linked to the military or Illuminati. So, but to experience a world without vaccines would be great. I know that there's some that are necessary. There are some good vaccines, but weaponized vaccines, I mean, it's the perfect way to disable and dumb down a society and a humanity, is through, you know, the vaccination programs. But if they're done right, it makes sense to a certain degree. But disease, to me, is disconnect from spirit, or working through something in order to get to our truth frequency and our healing powers and abilities. And disease can help bring us closer to ourselves. It's our body's way of saying, hey, something's wrong. This is what I need from you to make it right. But we've been taught to give our power away to a doctor, and we get more disconnected from ourselves. We end up on drugs. We end up carrying a label of a disease around, and we overly identify with it instead of the transformation process that disease is actually seeking to bring. You know, every time I get sick, it's usually like, ooh, that's when I'm really doing the inner work. That's when I'm really going deep and looking at, okay, where, you know, and sometimes it's just the body's way of detoxing. But yeah, disease like cancers and like different genetic disorders and this and that, I feel comes from a long line of unresolved family trauma that eventually damages the DNA. Because again, DNA is elemental. It connects us with our multidimensional self, and things like trauma, unresolved ancestral patterns, belief systems that were put upon us, or things that we were made to do because society said so, like going to war. You know, there's a lot being passed down to us. And when it can't be resolved through working on it or working through it, the body then takes it on, and then it gets passed down. And then all of a sudden you're inheriting something, and you're not the one, though, that experienced that part of the storyline that created that genetic damage. So sometimes when I work with people and their charts, it's like you can trace things back, and it's like, you know, many generations ago, this is when, you know, that distortion or that disease or damage took place, or it began, you know, a long line of, you know, inheriting physical illnesses. The physical body when it's not well and when it produces disease, it's unconscious, unresolved stuff. Because we know that when we cry and when we work things out, when we talk things out, when we get something out of our system, we're going to be pretty healthy physically if we can do that when needed. That's part of our energy maintenance. But if we're holding on to anger, if we're holding on to insecurities or fears or traumas, and we can't cry it out and we can't resolve it or work it out, the body then takes it on and it starts to degrade the body, and it starts to create genetic damage that can be passed down. That you know, and then like a starseed person or a advanced soul or an awakened person that comes in to maybe that genetic damage or that disease has the opportunity to change the ancestral lineage and change the ancestral lines in future generations by working on healing it holistically with herbs, with doing, you know, inner work and all these different, you know, techniques where, you know, it's transformational. And that's part of the Great Awakening, is allowing illness to wake us up instead of victimize us and cause us to give our power away. What do you think they will do with the black cube at 9/11 Memorial, the waterfall? If we don't get rid of, will it keep the dark authority? I mean, I think when the cabal really goes down, all that stuff is going to go along with it. So I don't really know what's going to happen, but if we don't get rid of it, will it keep the dark authority? Well, I mean, we want to get rid of anything that just sort of holds that black magic or that darkness, that symbology. And I think that's going to be part of it for sure. What is your understanding of the 140,000 people and or DNA activation? Yeah, that's considered like, you know, the number 12 times 12, connected to, you know, the amount of awakened people. Like we need that number in order for the whole collective to wake up. There's like 144,000 that are, you know, carrying like this particular energetic. From what I've come to understand, it's connected to the Melchizedek and the cosmic cube matrix. And it's some kind of platonic solid structure. I think it's the tetrahedron. And it's the architecture that connects with also the Orpheum consciousness and what Lisa Renee talks about, the Crystal Cathedral and the founder guardian groups, right? So it's like all those that are of that lineage, 144,000, as they kind of awaken, what that does to the earth grids, what that does to the planetary collective consciousness, will help us to move to the next level. And that's just kind of, you know, what I know. And it relates to also our DNA. And I'm just trying to see if I can find more information that I can send. Maybe, you know, any question that like you want more information on, I can get you really awesome sources. And I would recommend you look at the Ascension Glossary, and you can just put in, you know, a terminology like that and read in great detail, because it would take too long to like really get into it. But it's one of those kind of things that like, there's a few pages that you would want to read about it. I can only really give a quick answer. Okay. Why do you think President T is pushing the COVID vaccinations? I have heard there are different vaccines and they are labeled for a certain population to get specific ones. I know Trump wants people to wake up and see the dark agendas, but pushing the people to get the vaccine is deadly. Is there a vaccine that is therapeutic and without the nanotechnology and DNA manipulation? Yeah, that's been kind of like weird, but I've gotten a lot of information saying that the white hats in the military have made them safe. They don't have the nano stuff. They're not the weaponized vaccines, but it's like, it'd be really appreciated if he could give more clarity about that. I know not everybody is maybe ready for that kind of conversation or understands it to the level that people like us do, but he needs to be more clear. If he could just say vaccines, if you want, great, they're not mandatory. If he could just remind us that he's still aligned with that, that would be wonderful and reassuring. You know, I did not like seeing Pence getting a shot taken on TV. It's all so ridiculous. It's like, we can't even prove what he's shooting in his arm. It could be saline solution. It's like, it's like you're trying to build confidence in all of us getting vaccines. I'm not happy about it at all. So I would love to hear him just say one key word to just be like, oh, phew. Okay. He's reminding us these will not be mandatory. Under Biden, they will be mandatory. Somebody said a while back, Trump sold us out in 2017, but we've seen all that he said about therapeutics and hydroxychloroquine. And we've seen, his approach when, he said that he had COVID. That was way after 2017. I think he might have done some deal and didn't realize he was dealing with dark players. He's learned so much about the deep state. Like he said in a lot of speeches, I knew that there was a swamp. I knew that, we had to drain the swamp. He just didn't have any idea how deep it went. It was so much deeper than he could imagine. And Sydney's also said that. So somebody has got to be briefing him about the dangers of vaccines. So I hope it's true that the military has made them safe and that there will be options that are not the vaccinations. I personally, I have my own methods and protocols that I use. So, but yeah, for the greater population, it really depends on, I don't know if it's going to be a state to state thing. And in that case, some people are going to have to leave certain areas. If they say you can't go back to work or travel unless you get this shot. So, I mean, and they're going to try and do this on a global level. And it seems like Trump is the only one and his team that are capable of taking this down. But I hope he can just give us a little bit more information because it's very vague right now. And I don't like it. But I've been getting, positive information sent that this is not the weaponized kind and it won't be mandatory. So that's all I can really say about that right now. Yeah, okay. When you have a rant on Twitter, which is effing awesome, are you getting a download? I get so charged up. It's warrior. Yeah, I just kind of sit there and I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Something just comes to me and I very often just tweet it. And then sometimes I go back and delete. But yeah, I miss being on Facebook because there's only so many lines you can use on Twitter. And I used to write really long ones on Facebook. And definitely, yeah, I download a lot. When I get really relaxed and just sort of in a peaceful place, it's just like boom, boom, boom. It comes in and I'm just like, whoa, okay. And then a really weird sense of humor so that I can manage and just deal. Because, yeah, it hasn't been so easy. I mean, I've known about the New World Order. I've been talking about the New World Order for years and years and years. But it's like, it doesn't mean it's easy when it's like, when we're like face to face with it and it's really coming down hard on us all. So, yeah, just to answer your question though. My birth chart shows a black moon Lilith. No one can seem to explain what exactly that means. Can you share something about that? Mine is in Leo and in the 4th house. Well, the black moon Lilith to me is a very important archetype. There's the asteroid Lilith and the black moon Lilith. And the mythology of the black moon Lilith, has a lot to do with, if we're look at the artificial components of the moon and how that connects to the feminine, not so much an embodied feminine energy, but the manipulation of the feminine energies through the Saturn moon matrix thing. Then we got the black moon Lilith. She was the first wife of Adam and then ran off, refused to submit to the control that Adam was insisting on, and then took off to like the Red Sea or something and birthed a bunch of demons and then was demonized and called a succubus. I think she's a very, very powerful archetype that's connected to the goddess. She connects with Kundalini. She connects with the most sort of organic kind of like earth representation of goddess energy, connected to the dragon. I think she's been vilified because we have two different sort of competing agendas. We have sort of like the demiurgic sort of patriarchal, and then we have sort of like the Draco, and they kind of have formed a bit of an alliance because there's similar goal. There's been some kind of alliances, happening. I would say Lilith is sort of more the primordial, connected more to Draco, whereas like Eve is maybe more connected to demiurge. And so this is just different aspects of the goddess, and it shows a much, much larger story. And integrating all these different goddess archetypes is what we need to do. So if you have black moon Lilith, I would say in Leo in the 4th house, you experience that archetype when you're like creative and at home. I don't know if you decorate your home in a way that kind of brings out qualities of that archetype. Maybe you do. Maybe there's dragon art in your home. Who knows? But she's, I think, an incredibly powerful archetype. It's been very, very difficult to carry that archetype in the last 26,000 years because of the control. She cannot be controlled. And I'm not saying Eve can be, but there's, you know, sort of more of a sorrow connected to Eve's lineage of, you know, all the blame that was put upon her and a lot of the programs, a lot of the dark technologies. And anyway, Lilith just ran off. So she's the part of us that's really wild and really bold and like really fiery and really like intense. And but she's been demonized as being a succubus. So there's sometimes in the lower densities and realms, there are aspects of powerful archetypes that have branched off, that do have like splinters, you know, like we hear about Archangel Michael matrix and some dark qualities to some of that energy, even Thoth, you know, and the Emerald Tablets, there's been something there. So in this lower density, it makes even archetypes subject to having fallen or fragmented parts of themselves. So there might be an incubus part of her or a succubus in her own anger and rage and revenge, but like that's just a small part of the larger Lilith energy because of what she represents on a much larger level. So we're healing that archetype. We're healing all these archetypes. We're creating archetypal harmony within ourselves in order to rebuild all of this back into, you know, like the cosmic trinity where it all emerged from. You know, when we look at the pantheons, there's always sort of that dark catalyst of like Hades or Set or, you know, and these sort of storylines. But we hold these archetypes in order to heal them within ourselves. So anyway, you know, Leo's all about creativity, art, music, recreation, children. Fourth is all about home. And so you might be very, very strong in your character in the way that you relate to others, family members. Maybe when you were a child too, it's just kind of like you're a force to be reckoned with. You don't want to screw with her. You don't want to fuck with her. But the Leo will just bring out, you know, more of the creative spark. So you can channel a lot of that through creativity and bring out like a really, really deep side of yourself. So it'd be really good to be creative in your home.